Our journey begins. It's day 34, July 4th, 2024, and I'm currently walking in the very early morning. The clouds are covering about half of the sky, but the part that the clouds are not, you can see the stars. The moon is not visible. It's like perfect 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Absolutely beautiful. It smells fresh and it smells like summertime. And it's just absolutely amazing to be alive, to enjoy this moment. So I wanted to do there seems to be a balance in life of different things. Sometimes it's good to just get in a routine and do things day after day. And I probably will get back to the computer later today and work through some stuff. But then also, sometimes it's good to just take a different approach and think through things in one's mind while taking a walk, while just being in the darkness of a beautiful night, and the opportunity to kind of sometimes it's hard to think through things in total detail because you can't take your time like typing out a sentence and then restructuring the sentence. But overall, it's a little bit more relaxing, which can be better for if you're trying to do more imaginative stuff. If you're trying to go for like the ultimate imaginative stuff, really a meditation style exploration is probably the best and most imaginative, but walking is probably another close companion to that. So I'm not exactly sure. I think I'll explore multiple different ideas and try to think, yeah, just kind of try to grasp them in my mind here this morning. So let's just start with this idea that I was thinking about before I started this walk, which is I had thought of, oh, like, hey, capturing the imagination of people, that's really how you accomplish something without any force, without any need to have all these incentives. Like, if you capture someone's imagination, that is the incentive. They just want to continue to feed their imagination with that thing, and they will do whatever it takes to follow along with that. Um, which makes sense. But you could also look at it a little bit differently of like perhaps falling in love. Perhaps the goal is to have people fall in love with good things because the imagination is a very strong force. And I've always thought that virtual reality would help with that and whatnot. But I don't know if it's just because um, it appears from media and whatnot that the force of love is stronger than the force of captured imagination, which does bring into question if it should be if we're going for the movement having the strongest binding force and ability to actually accomplish things. I'm guessing that means that it should not just be capturing the imagination of people, but also creating something that people just fall in love with it. And because you could say that about lots of things, like sometimes people just fall in love with an area, so they move to the area. And then their life kind of revolves around that area because that's where they live. Or falling in love with other people, or falling in love with biking or some other activity like that. Or, yeah. And then people end up changing their life around so that they can um, more cater and spend time with the thing that they love. So um I'm guessing it's I'm not exactly sure the full breakdown if falling in love with something is like part of that is just being captured by is having your imagination captured, or if it's two separate things or whatnot. Either way, I guess it's just semantics at this point since I don't know. So I'm guessing to really change the world, to do it in a way that's not forceful, and to do it in a way that just millions and billions of people are like, yeah, let's do it. It has to be something that's not forced, something that is inspiring, that people will do out of their own desire. And because that's really the best way to do it. Plus, like in general, you don't want to have to force it. You don't want to have to like make anyone feel guilty or like because like now stuff gets done because people kind of have to do it because they either feel guilty about it or they have to go to work because really they just have to make money. They're not really at work because they like work or something like that. But it's the best when like the the person just wants to go to work because they like to work. Although you could say sometimes it's better if they have a need for money because then when things get rough, then they'll stay there and not just leave because when things didn't get fun, then they left because they were only there for the fun of it. Which I guess that you could say that about the movement. If it's which I guess is why capturing the imagination is not the only part you would need. Yeah, you would need an actual love because that way when times got tough. I think that's the whole point of, or that's a good portion of the whole aspect of love is the fact that it binds even when times are rough. Um, so maybe there's a couple different aspects. So love is like an emotion, a captured imagination. That's not. It's like kind of an emotion, in my opinion. And then there's like being thankful. That's, man, I don't know what that's even called. It's not an emotion. It's um a state of being. I'm not sure, but I imagine you'd want something where people are thankful to be a part of it. People are inspired. Their imagination has been captured, and they've fallen in love with it. And maybe they've even committed to helping. Like maybe they've made a commitment too. Um, but yeah, basically you'd want all of those things as part of the mechanism behind like or it's not even like the it's weird because the goal isn't necessarily to like we need to manipulate people into making the world a better place. And the way to do that is to just make making the world a better place the most fun thing to do and make it that people fall in love with it and make it that people are thankful for the progress that they're making. Um I think it's less that although it probably sounds like that's what I'm going for, and more like if it is, because if making the world is actually like it captures one's imagination and it just makes them fall in love like that is like the actual process of someone doing that would give them tremendous purpose and enjoyment of life and that whole deal. So like it's not that it's one of those things where it's it's not a, what do you call that when it's not a sum game where uh, essentially like both parties, like both the person trying to live a nice life, their life will be um, drastically improved because be inspired and they'll be in love with something beneficial. But then everyone else will also get massive benefit because that person's working toward. Yeah, it's not a zero sum game. The is the right phrase for that. It's a synergy. It's it's a really good synergy. So yeah, I'm not, I haven't, I still haven't figured out how you would do that exactly. How would you, so like for one, like for me looking at the stars, I mean, that just captures my imagination. I mean, look at all those beautiful little dots in the sky. And it just reminds you of how we're just on this little planet. And then it kind of helps capture your imagination for traveling to the stars, to wondering our place in the universe, all of that sort of thing. I suppose we could also take insight from like actual falling in love and actual being thankful. Um, I'm wondering if it's going to be more difficult to create something that people fall in love with or to create something that people are inspired in, their imagination is captured. I also imagine that because love is, yeah, I'm guessing that captured imagination is part of the phases of love. Like, because there's like the three kinds of love or whatever. And I think the one kind probably could be similar to like captured by or something. I'm not sure. But like, it almost seems like in human beings, there is the initial attraction, which is mostly biological, and that's sort of the captured by. And that kind of has to come before the real deal love, where you spend time with the person and you begin to, yeah, like truly have a different kind of everlasting love type of idea. And so, yeah, really we have to figure out the captured imagination by first. And then and I don't even know if, obviously, you can set up conditions so that people are more or less likely to be to fall in love with something, but you really can't actually make people fall in love. Like that's the whole point of love, really, is that it's a choice. But it's interesting because like a- arranged marriages, like you're not going through that captured by, but yet it seems that arranged marriages actually seem to be slightly better in some ways for overall happiness and well-being. Although I don't really know the research on that. There might be other reasons for that, which the result I just mentioned might not be the actual result. So, um, I'm. Let's see if we can explore a little bit how you might capture the imagination. And I did kind of explore this before, but on a different non-presented journal. So, yeah, dreams, nostalgia, fascination, um, a story, an epic story, nature. Um, I wonder if having your imagination, uh, I wonder if that's biological or if that is like a mind thing. I mean, it sounds like it would be a mind thing, but a lot of mind things are biological. And what I mean is like sort of hormone and evolutionary sort of desires. Um, I'm not sure. Probably it's a little bit of both. But like, so something of, so like stories have for centuries been something that can capture people's imagination. And that's why to this day, books and movies are the primary way that people's imaginations are captured. And but like when it comes to the movement, how would that work? Well, like for one, like last year, I was sort of inspired to start this journey that I'm currently on of like complete dedication to making the world a better place by a book that I had read that it inspired me. It captured my imagination, it captivated me until it was done. And I was like, it really did inspire me to be like, I don't want to have to wait till something bad happens to make a change. I want to be able to make a change, to be as dedicated as that beforehand, because really then you can skip a lot of that really bad stuff because you were working ahead of it. Um, which is actually a pretty high character thing to do, I think. So I'm proud of myself for that. But I don't know, like, would people, would you just create a sort of genre and do well, I did think through this, like, I've thought through the idea of personalized books where you'd go through like a 2-week interview with an AI and the AI would figure out all of the stuff about you. And from that, you would generate the main character of the book and the character arc and all of those facets, which would be based similarly to you, but not necessarily exactly you. And there would be differences which would be notable so that at no point do you feel like, oh, this is exactly me and how my life will turn out. But then, and then you you have various character arcs based on what you presently, like the AI would have been able to interview and presently would have been able to figure out what your current state of character is at and where you desire your character to go to. So once you figured out the character arc and all of that, then you could do the whole world building and the whole plot, well, because really the plot is based on the main character arc. So then you build the epic plot, which would be related to also what the person's interested in. And then the world building would be related to what the person's interested in. And you could create this whole epic book, personalized, like deeply personalized to a person. And right now, you could potentially do this with AI, but it would be so stereotypical that it would be really bad. Because right now, AI is only based on the highest statistical probability of something happening, which when it comes to books, makes things very uninteresting. But like that right there is a key way that, oh, that was just my shirt. Thought something was crawling up my arm. Pardon me. The stars are really beautiful though. And so yeah, personalized books and that sort of vein, personalized virtual adventures, all of that would be really cool, but I don't know that we want to have to depend on that. You don't want to have to depend on some AI making some cool, inspiring book for you to read, and that's why you fall in love with it and do the thing. I don't know, it just seems like you'd want it to be a little bit more simple than that. But I mean, if that's how it happens, that's how it happens. But I guess I'm thinking maybe a more like natural or simple way of doing it would be that you sort of from the ground up create a group of people who just are on fire to make a change, and that sort of vigor and sense of belonging in that community begins to grow, and just being a part of that community and doing the amazing things that that community is doing, that captures your imagination, and you fall in love with that community, and you're thankful to be a part of it, and you do the right thing. But I don't know that that's practical. The other aspects could be that, um, yeah, even when when I talk about this, it sounds like you're trying. So, like, let's say that in the movement you had a group of movie makers, like people who were like that. That's what they would do if they didn't have to work for money. They would make creative movies that are inspiring. Like, would there have to be some rule that they have to make inspiring movies about the movement? That they have to capture the imagination of people about the movement? And I don't think that would make sense, because it seems like whenever you have to force something, that it's the worst it can be. But perhaps if people that are in the movement already, if their imagination has already been captured by the idea, so they want to kind of share that with other people, so then they naturally create um, some inspiring stuff for everyone else. I could totally understand how that could work out. Um, but then that's out of my control or whatever. Like, there's no way I could do that necessarily, other than like if I have any sort of inspirational thing, I would say this or that. So, because you could also say like, oh, like maybe I need to just write an epic book that just captures the imagination of the population and inspires them to start this movement. And once the movement's started, then it sort of is self-organizing toward self-inspiration. Um, I don't know. I mean, you you could imagine creating an AI society that's self-organizing, that has that is sort of the movement, and because of the properties that you've built into the AIs to a certain extent, you could totally work out how the how they were going to progress, and you could like basically create rules or principles of a self-organizing thing, and they would all follow them because they're all obedient and just want to do the right thing, and then it just kind of works out. But like humans are not like that. They're very unpredictable. So the whole idea of a self-organizing movement is extremely foreign to, I think, a lot of the way that we think about human society, where most of the time it's rules that have to be enforced. Otherwise, no one does them. And everyone will just do them differently, and then it won't be coordinated. So, really, the whole idea is fascinating and probably will only mainly work if people are the best versions of themselves. Because if people are the best versions of themselves, they're likely to be self inspiring. And if not, like literally to themselves, to other people. Um, very likely. So then that kind of answers your question. But doesn't, I feel like that should not be the answer to everything is, oh, like, if someone's the best version of themselves, then they'll do the right thing. Like that, you have to really think through the whole process of people actually doing the right thing, um, and why they would want to become the best version of themselves, and why they would want to continue that evolution on and become better and better. And but so the book writing, like I don't think I'd be able to necessarily write a book. Yeah, like given that constraint where humans are completely unpredictable, I think that's why it's so important to create something where it captures your imagination, because then you don't have to remind people. There's no reminder to, oh, hey, are you going to become a better version of yourself? Like, there doesn't have to be a reminder because people are almost consumed with that thought because they're inspired to do so because of the overall inspirational thing. And so, yeah, is it biological? Could you say perhaps if you make it, if you sort of inspire people through telling them in some sort of religious way that the person will have a happy life if they do this or that, or sort of that natural way that I mentioned where you have a community of people and that community of people, or like maybe you have a physically beautiful city that you create and just living there is in constant state of imagination and you just want to improve your own life and the city around you. um, I guess it also depends on like the people. Like there's probably a group of 50 to 100,000 people in the world that would be, assuming that we can work out the um, a, uh, consensus on what the best possible version of the future and the best way to get there is, those 100,000 people are already sort of self-inspiring and would be completely okay in the movement situation to just self-improve and really actually get things done, which would probably be enough. But I'm not the type of person to say, and yeah, I mean, it would probably grow as well, and sort of, it would be um, like, yeah, it would grow by itself naturally through people through other people seeing that group and being inspired. So that's one way you could do it, which I guess that makes sense. Or you could actually figure out a way to inspire people who are not at all part of the group yet into sort of that whole journey of becoming the best version of themselves. So, as you can see, there's a lot of complicating issues with it. But the only way we're going to reach a reasonable conclusion is by thinking through it. And that's sort of why, like, on these talking sessions, it's really hard for me to keep track of everything in my head. So I don't even really try. I just talk it out. And then I just keep talking new idea. And then maybe I repeat the same idea a couple times. But I'm getting more new ideas than if I was at home, like, actually structuring out what I'm thinking about. And every time I think of something, I write it down or whatever. Because, yeah, like, as I've been talking through it this morning, there's been no clear answer because there's so many variables that are completely unknown. But I'd say at least we could try researching things that do capture people's imagination and that people do fall in love with and that do inspire people and that people are thankful to be a part of. And we could take a look at all those, find their qualities, and find why that is. Is that a biological desire? Is that just sort of the individual's personality, sort of mental state in which they like certain things and are captured by certain things on a very individual basis, not related to evolutionary desires or anything like that. But I guess that's sort of referring the actually figuring it out. I mean, it makes sense that that could work, but I feel like I could also try just thinking through it now. What things capture people's imagination? So people fall in love with other people, right? This is often the highlight reel, like, of someone's life, is falling in love with some person, living with said person, dying with said person, all of that. That is often the creating a family with that person. That's the highlight reel of someone's life. Like, that's like all of those parts are usually in the highlight reel. And it's not just the falling in love with the person, unless you really, like, technically, I think it's also just the desire to, or like the evolutionary desire to reproduce, and like the effects that having a family and the purpose that that provides, and the meaning and the relationships that that helps provide. All of that stuff isn't necessarily just falling in love, but it's brought about by that initial falling in love type of thing. But then there's a lot of times where the love completely disappears because it was built on some. It was only built on. So this is an interesting idea too. There are a lot of divorces which happen, which I think happen in part because the relationship was built, well, first of all, on each party only caring about themselves. But then also, like, it was maybe only built on, like, the physical evolutionary desires and not on the person's heart. I think this is where, like, the movement, you could say, it shouldn't just be that you're so interested in what the movement's doing that you decide to join. It should be that once you join and you get deeper into it, you fall in love in even a deeper way than before. But yeah, I mean, I'd say in general, relationships seem to be, and like falling in love with other people is a lot of biology and evolution, and status quo, culture, society, peer pressure. But I think media has explored this idea of this like magical love where it's sort of this because like love is a lot hormonal, but there might be, and yeah, I guess we don't fully know everything, but it's sort of this concept of, and I'm kind of blanking on like what exactly the definition of love is. It depends. If you ask 10 people, they'd probably all give you a different definition anyway. But suppose it is a sort of a magical feeling of being together, filling a void in your life or something like that. And yeah, just sort of the living together and adventuring together. So all of those things you could do. You wouldn't like you could create a movement where people who are inspired, they live together in a physical community, or they do similar activities, they spend time with each other. They Now would it be the exact same kind of love? Probably not. There's different kinds of love, but in general, they just love being part of the movement. Sort of like, and this might just be me or however, but in college, there was something about it, the community, the people, even though it was stressful by nature, it was very enjoyable. Just meeting so many people, talking, being part of the thing, working through issues, experiencing the seasons and the food and all the other stuff that when you compare sort of your life at college and like your life at a normal 9 to 5, even though perhaps you're in better health in your normal 9 to 5, you're accomplishing more because you have a more stable routine. You sort of enjoy your day to day more. The the college years seem vastly more enjoyed, and perhaps that's only nostalgia and not any other reality, but it could be things just like the overall community of being a part of something and of talking with so many people and the friendships and all of that stuff. So it's sort of the chicken before the egg problem, though. Um, the whole idea, because the whole thing is like, okay, well, if you had a group of people that had a movement that did things together that inspired other that were just like completely inspiring and like being a part of the movement, just life changing and absolutely enjoyable, then you would have a basis for people being inspired, and that would sort of capture the imagination. But before you have that, like, how do you capture the imagination? There had to be something initially that sparks the need for people to start working together and then the movement comes after that. So you could either do like a sort of grassroots effort where you sort of go person to person and you yourself and a couple other people sort of start a movement of some group of people and you sort of build it very slowly yourself. Or perhaps it's a little bit more broad where you write an absolutely inspiring book or you create those personalized books or movies or virtual reality adventure like I talked about. And then that sort of inspires a lot of people to start creating their own movements and then eventually come together, and it's sort of self-authoring from that point on, from that like initial super duper inspiring thing. So I don't know. At least I thought through it. I don't know the answer to it though, but you would need that initial thing. And the grassroots efforts just seem too slow. Of course, if you'd had that, then you could like trial and error, but I feel like you could trial and error one little group of people, but then it would be like humans are way too different to have like a full set of perfect rules that work out for all the billions and millions of people. So really you would want to have thousands of groups of people trialing and erroring on how their little movement works. And then they would come together and see what works, and then you sort of build up from that point. So in terms of getting things done, you'd really want that major inspiring thing to happen. So then, if you look at it that way, I just can't stop looking at the stars. They are beautiful. The whole world here is beautiful. So calm, so calm. Crickets. Let's see. What was I saying? I'm not sure if, yeah. I mean, I could get things ready for the personalized books. Like, I have the whole idea laid out. It could work. Just need a smart enough AI that can make it happen. But at that point, you could say, well, if you have a smart enough AI that can do that, it can do everything else, and then you don't really need a movement. You just have smart AIs do everything. But really, you can't depend on that. You kind of have to have the movement before you have the smart AIs so that the movement can ensure that the smart AIs are good and all that stuff. So you really need something else, something that can happen in the world. So then you have to kind of look at, okay, what events in history have captured people's imaginations? What sort of major inspiring moments have there been like that? And I can think of some things, whether that be like sports or competitions, like the race to the moon, or some sort of adventure like that, some sort of book that was written that was just really, really good, some sort of movie, some sort of, I mean, I still think like virtual reality adventures, we're getting really close. Like, we'll probably have those before we have all out AI. And of course, a really good virtual reality adventure would be something that is personalized and would be created by an AI based on an interview. I mean, perhaps it's just creating a software that connects like-minded people, like truly like-minded people that care about this issue, and connecting them together. And then they come together to create something inspiring, or / like then you have that group of people and they start the movement. I guess that is the point. You don't necessarily need to inspire the initial millions of, or the initial thousands of groups of people to come together. You don't necessarily need to inspire them to sort of self-spawn. You really, you could also look at it like you just need those people to end up together in the same spot and with the goal of actually developing the movement. So you could either have inspired that, or through some sort of more just like engineering way, you just worked it out that those like-minded people happen to be meeting together because that's like the most fun thing to do, is to hang out with cool people. And then you sort of have those thousands of groups of people, and then they sort of self-create the movement, and then it goes on from there. So you wouldn't, I'm guessing you'd need a little bit of inspiration for that group of people, but it could be inspiration in and of itself to just have those people come together. So then the answer to that would just be to create a software that truly that based on some sort of interview system where you gain a deep understanding of a person. You bring people together in a sort of enlightened algorithmic social network, and then the outcome from that would be to try to make the world a better place. But then I've thought about that whole thing for a long time, about how that's kind of forcing certain relationships to happen, and how you'd have to introduce randomness, and how truly, like, who defines what people, like, should you have a certain amount of people that are like-minded? Should they have a certain amount of diversity? And you get into really complicated stuff. But that, I do think, is a possibility and pretty interesting. Okay, I think hopefully I get back to working through more of this on paper, and I will see you then. Thank you.